And we go. And we are live on YouTube and Facebook. DSPN, Sunday morning here in New Zealand. Welcome along if you are watching us. And live chat available there too, so leave us a comment. My name is Martin Devlin. Very shortly joining us, Chris Jones out of the UK. Rugby, how good. So Super Rugby kicks off this weekend. You got the Six Nations as well, you know. A couple of cracking upsets in Super Rugby. And then this morning, well, it's one of those international rugby results I think that everyone who is not English just looks forward to so much. The Jocks have done it again. Scotland beating England and beating them comfortably too at Murrayfield this morning. Now, do remember, first round of Six Nations last week, Italy in the rain, upsetting Scotland. And I don't know which Scottish journalist it was, but somebody tweeted out, it's going to be typical Scotland to get up next week and actually beat England. That's 6 out of 7 now. And last year, if you remember, in the Six Nations, Scotland lost by a point. And I think they outscored them 3-2. If they'd kicked their conversions on the tries, well, then they would have won that game as well. This is an England side that hasn't been beaten since the opening match of the Six Nations last year. They did a real number on the All Blacks. How fickle is international rugby? South Africa, obviously, clearly at the top, but the rest of us, 5 or 6 teams, is it like this now? Is it opportunistic and any team can win on any day? Our good old mate, Chris Jones, Times Online, rugbypass.com, joins us. We've got so much to talk about this game. But, Chris, every single person in the world with some kind of connection to Scotland is wearing a kilt today, are they not? Getting a wee dram out. Because this is what we love about international rugby, isn't it? These kind of results.
Yes, it's, whatever the problems in Scotland, and we know that they haven't seen the sun for 3 weeks, they've been rained on for most of 2026. It all disappears in one afternoon, and they thoroughly deserve that victory. Although it is one of the strange things about international rugby that England actually won the second half 10-7, and playing the way they did, everybody's going, how did that happen? Because they were so far behind 24-10 at half time, they might as well not have bothered coming out, because you lose a player to 2 yellow cards and you play with 14 men for half an hour of an international match, you are not going to win. And that was patently obvious. And we've already seen the reaction from the fans. England are just flat-track bullies. Sack Borthwick. George Ford is no longer the best outside half in the world. Get Finn Smith in. It's all gone off for England. It just took 1 week. And this is the great thing about this year's Six Nations, is that they've cut out one of the rest weeks. So we get 3 internationals in a row, 1 week where you sort of look at your navel if you're England, and then you play your next 2. Scotland, of course, are going bonkers at the moment in the streets of Edinburgh, and they're heading to Spain. They're going in search of the sun that their players haven't seen for so many weeks, and they're going to be training for Wales, which, given Wales's form at the moment, they'll probably mean they're just lying on sun lounges.
Well, that game tomorrow morning, our time, Wales are hosting France. And interesting, we said this on Friday, that the bookies wouldn't even put any odds here in New Zealand on France. So it's just a flat line. It wasn't even $1.01. We've got so much to unpack from this game. And one of the things, and I'm so glad that you mentioned it early, mate, I wrote down was, we always try to read as much into circumstance that leads to opportunity, don't we, in test matches? You know, whether or not this try should have been scored, that penalty was given, TMO intrusion here. But yellow cards, red cards, ill discipline. Does that take anything away from this Scottish result? They scored 14 points when England were down to 14 in that first half. And even the commentator said when that ball squirted out, was it a 50-50 call or a yellow card? Is it just a part of the game now, as much as rucks and mauls and box kicks are, that we just got to accept if you got down to 14 and England stupidly had to play almost, well, just over half that game with 14 men, Chris? How significant?
Well, absolutely. They've worked out, haven't they? The stats guys, as they always do, have worked out the minimum you suffer is 7 points when you're down to 14 men. Wales, of course, tried to do it with 13 against England in that last match. But Scotland were very clever. Finn Russell had one of his best games for Scotland and exploited that flank where he should have been. Henry Arundel should have been. His first yellow card, very debatable. His second was patently a ridiculous thing, taking somebody out in the air, almost like a flying, sliding tackle. Took out Stain, who was absolutely fantastic. But what it summed up to me was that he was the accident waiting to happen, because the strategy England put in place was, we're just going to kick the ball long and Scotland won't know what to do with it. And what they did, in fact, is not kick it straight back, which is what Borthwick was hoping. Scotland ran it back and scored tries. And that was the old thing about England. You know, they got this game plan. It's called A. They don't have B when things get really tough for them. And they were tough today. The Scotland team that didn't turn up in Italy, and I will say, you know, straight away, yeah, Italy played really, really well. And we'll talk about them later about Ireland.
Yep.
They are putting together consistently good performances. What it showed was that Scotland probably weren't as bad as their fans thought they were. But boy, it showed you how absolutely dreadful Wales really were if that England team was being held as potential world beaters after the debacle in Twickenham a week earlier.
Chris, the ball in hand thing, let's go back to that, because I did message you, during the game and said that, look, what I was really impressed with Scotland was the intent for a start, using the ball and keep using the ball. And there was one brilliant Finn Russell moment, the flip on with the hand, and that's going to be memed and that's going to be Instagrammed and everything else. I mean, that's just a piece of absolute genius when it comes off like it did. But that was just, I just think the way that Scotland approached that, this was a team playing with real confidence and prepared to really attack on the ground. And one thing that I was quite surprised with was in that first opening 15 to 20 minutes, we didn't see a lot of air, did we? And that was, as you say, a Scotland team that had a completely different tactic and a completely different approach to it. Maybe the 14 men, of course, they knew they had space, but you still got to be brave enough to dial that up, don't you?
Absolutely. And look, when the ball went up from England, the winning hands, the winning tapbacks were all attached to Scottish players. England just didn't function as a high ball chasing team. And, Ford just spent a lot of the time just hoofing it as far as he could downfield, which is obviously what he's been told to do. Now, a lot of the England fans afterwards, and a lot of we're talking about this, is that it's almost as if Lee Blackett, the attack coach who's been brought in, was told for this game, look, I'm the head coach, bracket Steve Borthwick, we're just going to kick the ball. And I know you want to play with ball in hand, but that's not what's going to beat Scotland. And it was a terrible tactical blunder. And Borthwick's got to own it, because that is not the way that Lee Blackett's teams play. And he's got to let these players express themselves. I'm not absolutely certain that England's selection, particularly in the midfield, is right at all. When you're not picking people like Ollie Lawrence, who would have given you some go-forward ball against the Scots, who were physically intimidating the backs for England. That they looked stronger, they looked fitter, and they certainly looked faster.
21-0 up, the Scots were against Argentina last year. And as soon as the commentator mentioned that, I think we're all probably thinking that, because at one stage in the second half, it was starting to get, because I don't know whether you believed until maybe the charge down try. At that stage, the game was over. But until then, England started that second half really well. Even with 14, they had a lot of possession. They were making the attacking plays and probably owned that first 10 minutes. So a couple of things there, just to overcome the jitters and the headspace of that, because remember they came back against New Zealand as well, Scotland, but couldn't close out. So that thing in the back of your mind, can we close? I know they've done it against England in the past, a lot of these players, but this particular game. And so how important then, on the back of that long-winded question, was the 10-point turnaround? You go for the drop kick, it gets charged down 7 points at the other end.
Yeah, it's very difficult to actually underestimate exactly how that was in momentum shifts in matches. There always are momentum shifts, but this was absolutely critical to the end result. He goes back not too far into the pocket, which is his mistake. He hasn't got the fastest drop kick set up. They knew this. He was charged down, but they were then immediately reacting to the charge down. England had nobody to pick up the pieces, and Scotland burst away, and that was possible 3 points for England, seven for Scotland, and effectively killed off any chance England had of coming back. Even though they did win that second half 10-7, those 7 points for the crowd, for Scotland, was absolutely game winning, because the crowd just didn't let up. They'd been quite subdued at the start, but they really picked up the fact that this was a very different Scotland performance, and that England were there for the taking yet again. They haven't won at Murrayfield since 2020. They were on a 12-game winning run.
Yeah. And
yet they came undone so badly that this week, instead of Scotland navel-gazing all week, it's going to be England. And there's just some big decisions they've got to make about selection going into the Ireland game. For Scotland, it's Wales.
Yeah.
what's left of Wales after France have
Mauled them.
steamrolled
Yeah.
them. And so it's a very different scenario this week. It's amazing. This is why the tournament is so fantastic. Entire shifts of continental plates have happened in 7 days.
Yeah, and look,
Scotland now
and the
look
many
like
narratives.
world beaters.
Yeah, look, so many narratives are, around it, so many storylines around it, and just the fickle nature of it, Chris, is this, we all tend to, and guilty on this side, overreact at every single result. I spent half of the first half texting mates this morning going, we were 12-0 up against these. And if we'd scored another try then, well, maybe we would have won at Twickenham. If we'd won at Twickenham, got a Grand Slam, would Razor still be the coach? I'm off down this rabbit hole over here, mate. And so, but, again, outside of South Africa, is this the case? Or is it just Scotland beating England? Is it just that? Or are the teams 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th all capable of doing this, given what you said, momentum shifts? And I wrote that word down 5 or 6 times. Momentum, momentum, momentum.
Look, there's no doubt that South Africa have created this gap. It's an obvious gap, both in strength and depth, in their ability to win games with ruthlessness, to dig themselves out when things aren't quite going their way. They will find a different way of doing things.
Yep.
And Rassi, we know, will come up with something new for this nation's tournament coming up. England don't have that. Scotland don't have it. Ireland are in a
I don't think the All
major
Blacks have it.
rebuilding.
I don't think the All Blacks have it either, just to interrupt you there either.
No.
I don't think we've got a plan B.
The only team, Marty, the only team I've seen who could possibly claim to be getting near that is France, but we're going to learn an awful lot more about them. They've got to go to Scotland, and they finish off against England. And if they come through this with a Grand Slam, and they're the only team now who can win the Grand Slam, then the idea of a real meetup between South Africa and France, that would just be just the year before the World Cup. If we can try and engineer that, that would just be wonderful to know exactly who is the number one going into the World Cup. Because you'd say by some way it's going to be South Africa, but again, France just have this fantastic strength and depth. We're going to see against Wales the Poe centre combination, because the Bordeaux centre combination is injured. So let's just bring another team centre combination in. They can just do this. Yeah, and we're not even talking about the Toulouse players who are injured. And that is the wonderful thing about the world rankings at the moment, is that everybody's fighting for that number 2 place behind South Africa, because it is a fact of life that they have been in the lead for a long time now, and nobody is good enough to close it.
No, I don't think so.
We've had some pretenders to the throne. Yeah, you guys at one stage thought, oh well, maybe Razor's lot will pick up the ball and really run with it. Well, we know what happened there. England are, as many of their fans are now saying, flat track bullies, and France just couldn't get their act together in a consistent way because Dupont was injured. He's now back, and that has a galvanizing effect on the entire squad, let alone the team. France, are so much better than Ireland at the moment, and leading Irish guys like Brian O'Driscoll say, we're just not the team we were 2 years ago.
It's obvious,
which is understandable because they've got old, and the young guys they're bringing in, some of them look very, very good, but they're going to have to be fast-tracked really quickly to be in time for the World Cup, and we know that they have an absolutely dreadful World Cup record.
A couple of other things before we let you go, mate. And obviously with Super Rugby starting as well this weekend, I just don't get and understand this headspace now. Look, we have this thing in New Zealand where, there's a portion of rugby and league fans who are constantly at each other. My sport's better than yours. Your sport sucks. And I always just think, well, can't you just watch both and be happy, or just watch yours and be happy? Within rugby, there's factions now of rugby fans. I mean, this is if you go, and read all the comments, and if you do, you probably need to get out of the house more. But, our competition's better than yours, and your competition, and you don't do this, and yours is ping pong, and yours is... Oh, look, a couple of things I wrote down. 15 tackles missed after 28 minutes. I'm not talking Super Rugby. That was England-Scotland this morning. So there's your Six Nations, right? And then all of those scrums. I'm not sure I miss reset scrums, Chris. After watching about 19 of them this morning, I'm not sure I missed those either.
Look, what you have to look at instead is the wonderful sight of an Italian pack, which is meant to sort of be very average, popping first Dan Sheehan out of the middle of the Irish scrum and then sending Tadhg Furlong into orbit. That, I love seeing a good scrum.
Who doesn't?
Where a technically good front row absolutely squeezes the life out of an opposition front row. It's great. It's part of, it's what makes this game different to others.
Yes.
And, okay, we don't love to see resets. And I thought Holly Davidson did really well as the first woman referee in the Six Nations in handling those front rows. And we saw a real scrum battle, and that's great to see. I'd hate that lost from the game because what will the Fat Boys do?
Mate, there's this beautiful picture where they had the ref's cam on. They had the Scottish front row and the England front row. I don't know whether you remember seeing it or something. And the ref was trying to explain to them about what they were doing wrong in terms of distance, I think it was, between the scrums. And I was looking at it thinking, I was looking at 6 grizzly bears on the National Geographic channel and somebody was handing out salmon. And I was saying, I don't want to be anywhere near that. These monstrous men. And you're talking about something that's so technical. And I don't know. I love that aspect of rugby, mate. I just find it really amusing. That it's just kind of like, who the hell knows what's going on in there apart from those guys and these guys, and can they sort it out? I think the referee's in a hopeless position, aren't they?
Absolutely, and in that it's a Italy Ireland game, they both blamed each other, and basically Holly Davidson gave them a look, just like naughty schoolboys, and just get on with it. And the other wonderful moment in that game, where McCluskey hoofed the ball upfield about 10 feet, and she said advantage over, and the Irish were going, it was a terrible kick, and she said, well, advantage is over. It's a bad kick. That's his fault.
Yeah, that's your fault. Yeah.
She actually got the guys working with her. And it was great to see because it added to the whole sort of feeling that this was a game that was played at a great pace, but also there was some humor in it. There was some aggression. There were some good fights. There was some pushing and shoving. Everything was mixed up into what was a really nice game to watch. It was one of those games where you start off thinking, well, it could be okay. Italy might hang in there. They were one bounce of the ball away from getting a draw.
Yeah.
If Melancello had got that. And we saw Sam Prendergast's international career disappearing backwards down a long corridor when he was replaced by Jack Crowley at number 10. And I just cannot believe we're going to see him at 10 again this season. Ireland do not function with this young kid at 10. He plays brilliantly for Leinster, but we have another situation where we saw it with some of the All Black guys. When you take that step up from your provincial team, can you make the space? Can you find the time to do what you need to do at international level? And at the moment, he's not doing that, and Ireland suffer. So that's one of those big questions we're going to find out as this Six Nations continues. Who will be the 10 for Ireland when they go into the Nations Cup and when they try and get into the World Cup? And maybe even a semi-final.
34-17, Scotland over England. 2013, Ireland over Italy. 2 crackerjack matches. As I said, every single person in the world with a mick in front of their name is going to be out there today, living at large in the fact that 6 out of 7. Before we leave, just on a personal note, I know that your daughter and her friend are travelling New Zealand at the moment. They went last night to the Blues versus the Chiefs, and I'm sorry, Chris, but they dialed up a bit of a turd of a game. So if they were looking for running Super Rugby, they didn't get it. After half an hour, Jeff Wilson in the commentary made a comment about, he said the crowd is eerily quiet. He said everyone's still waiting for the game to start. And that was half an hour in. It was just one of those, it just didn't happen kind of games, mate. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's the other thing. You travel 12,000 miles and you get to see that. Well, don't worry. I told her there's some much better sights in New Zealand that she will see over the coming months. And then Eden Park turned up. Anyway, she said it was a nice stadium. There we are.
Hey, appreciate you so much for staying up late for us and giving that analysis all over that. Chris Jones, Times Online, rugbypass.com. We'll be in touch again next week, mate. Thank you.
Good to see you, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been live since just before 11 o'clock, courtesy of our great friends, Novus Glass. Web Wonks as well. As far as Novus goes, 68 branches nationwide, and they do support us so generously. And just ask that, if you're making a consumer choice, that you think about that. You get all this content for free. And if you want to support us, keep us going, support those blokes. And Web Wonks as well. They're our 2 major sponsors. Lachlan is just in the background tinkering around, doing a bit of the tech stuff, saying goodbye to Chris, and then he's going to come in and we're going to wrap this live broadcast up, talking about the opening round of Super Rugby. I watched 3 games. They were the Highlanders Crusaders, Tars Reds, Drua MP yesterday. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I watched a lot. There is a weekend in the life. I had a couple of birthday parties to go to last night. So I didn't see the Blues Chiefs, thankfully. But my cohort, my producer Lachlan, went to the pub to watch that game, so he had an expert eye on that game, and he'll be able to tell us exactly how that unfolded. I have watched the highlights of it. I've read Jamie Wall's report on Radio New Zealand. He said there weren't many, if any. As well as that, somehow they managed to cock up, and I don't know how they did this, but the poor admin guy involved with the Blues will just be tearing his hair out. They had the 1996 team lined up there, and they were all going to come out the tunnel and give the boys a clap and so forth. But apparently the team came out the tunnel over there or something, and the crowds go, "Wow, what? You got one job, mate. You've got it organised." I mean, who would have thought that they would have come out the... You never come out that tunnel. Never thought of that. And that kind of just, as Jamie's report goes in on RNZ, he kind of summed up the whole game. He said it just didn't really kick into gear. Having said that, Super Rugby opening round, just like the Six Nations today, has delivered a couple of really grand upset results. And that's what you want right from the start. The quality of rugby, some of it was brilliant, some of it not. We'll go through. I've made a fair few notes here. Highlanders Crusaders 25-23. I tipped that one right. Even though I wanted to reverse it on Friday, I actually tipped it in the tipper. Tars Reds got that one right. I don't think there's a single person in any tipping competition, unless you're a diehard MP fan, that got that result. Yeah. MP winning 40-26. The other games, home team loses. Chiefs getting up over the Blues, picked that one. And the Force putting 56 on, Brumbies putting 56 on the Force. Point a minute, 80 points in that game. Let us start then with the game that you were meant to go and watch at the Boozer. You were at a pub right next to the stadium for a start. Yeah. You watched the Warriors preseason, and I was watching a bit of that yesterday too.
Warriors looked awful.
Yeah, but the crowd looked great, and it's, and there's. Look, I mean, no one's going to remember that score against Manly. It is preseason, but yeah, I thought it was a hell of a turnout in Napier. Congratulations. Yeah, the Warriors were pretty sketchy, conceded a few pretty poor tries, but as you know, who knows? I mean, it's 4 weeks away. How much did you get to watch of the Blues Chiefs game to do this report?
Let me try and remember. I certainly was paying attention for the last maybe 3 or 4 minutes when I realised that my two multis were about to die at the hands of Cortez Ratama.
Great try by him.
Very good try. I'll tell you what, he's had a really good start to the season, Cortez, in a game that was a bit of an ordinary game. He played pretty well, and he actually played really well against the Canes last week.
Not just him, mate. Okay, so that Cortez Ratama try was off a break by Samapeni.
Yeah,
and so
what a run.
He busted upfield, and then on the back of it, Cortez running really sharp angle at pace. And all I want is for these guys to do it in black jerseys, because we see this every year in Super Rugby. And this guy, Samapeni, is a beast at Super Rugby, but we haven't yet seen him translate it. So that's a hell of a start. Congratulations to them. What I wanted was a Perifetta report from you, him playing at 10, because he wasn't doing the goal kicking. How did he play? But obviously you saw, more of the pint glass than you did the screen.
Yes, a couple of jugs. The coconut margaritas came out at one point as well. They taste good as well.
I'm on assignment watching the game. The coconut margaritas come out. You know what this means, ladies and gentlemen,
that's
don't you?
My post-match review is how good those margaritas were.
And then you're at about 3 in the morning, you're at somewhere on Ponsonby Road in your new Broncos jersey.
I wasn't wearing this one. I was wearing my Blues shirt, actually. So if you saw a Blues jersey in and around Ponsonby at 2 a.m. last night, then g'day. No, it was
probably met him.
I thought Perifetta played all right. The game itself had moments of brilliance from both sides, but neither side really could kind of kick on and take advantage. I thought the Blues in the second half were better, but again, they couldn't really string any sort of dominance around possessional territory. And the Ratama try, I thought, was similar to the Blues try in the first half that I think was scored by Zahn Sullivan, which is a great try. And it was a really good turnover from Bradley Slater, and then some quick passing.
Defence all out of position, though.
Yeah, but I was expecting a bit more from the Blues because they looked really good against the Crusaders.
Same. Which we saw on Waitangi Day.
But I don't think we really learnt a lot about either side, and I don't think either side's really coming out of that feeling great. Like, even if the Blues had held on, not considered that late try, and ended up winning by 3 points, no one's really coming away from it feeling great.
I
thought Perifetta played all right, though.
We can promise you that full analysis of all of these games with Tony Johnson tomorrow morning, Sky Sports commentator, who's going to join us. The podcast will be recorded in the morning. It'll be posted tomorrow night. And so he will give us the expert
Can I just say,
view on that particular game, given that old jug face here.
Okay, hold up. What were you doing?
I was out. I had 2 birthday parties to go to, and actually couldn't get to one, and then just went to one of them. So that was a real shame.
I watched it in passing, and then I watched the replay this morning.
I was that guy at the party, though. I was looking at my phone for results and updates and tries and things.
I thought by total contrast to the game last night, though. The Highlanders on Friday was really good.
Let's start there because that was an absolutely brilliant way to start Super Rugby. Made a fair few notes out of this. A lot of handling errors in the first half. I think it was 10 to the Crusaders, 7 to the Highlanders, 17 handling errors. So the game, it wasn't as crisp again, and just in terms of that skill level. But in terms of closeness of scoreline, seesaw back and forth, momentum shifts, and just the fact that the underdog, who remember last year, the Highlanders were last, beating the team that won it, it had all of those elements, the Cinderella element, the upset element and everything else. So it was an absolutely cracking game. And look, Cam Miller's clutch penalty, 50 metres with about 2 or 3 minutes to go. I mean, remember last year he had a shot and he couldn't get it to draw the game and take it to added time. That was a play. That was a real play. First round to knock that over from 50 metres.
Yeah,
brilliant
as well.
And then they held on really well, the Highlanders, because the Crusaders came back. They gave the ball away. They had about a minute and a half to go to keep possession, gave it away. And then the Crusaders had it back. And as they were inching forward into that 22, you're just thinking, it's going to be a penalty here. They're going to get a chance to score. And the Highlanders managed to get a turnover there. I think he knocked it. I think Reeves might have knocked it on it. But look, that was just a really gutsy way to close as well. And you could see in the coaching box with Jamie Joseph and all his crew that what it meant to them.
The Highlanders are an interesting team because they're not really a bunch. The first term that comes to mind is a group of nobodies. They're not. But if you were to talk about teams with the most talented rosters out of the 5 New Zealand sides, if we sort of put Moana to the side for a sec, they are last in terms of their roster strength. And yet they've got a lot of players who make really, really, really big plays and exciting plays and actually have quite a bit of class and talent. And like Tangato's try at the start was awesome.
Brilliant. No, again, look, and we're talking about Max Jorgensen. There is nothing like watching a winger, like they do in the NFL, a wide receiver who can stop his man and just beat him with sheer footwork and pace.
But the fullback, Jacob Ratamutavaiki-Nedkins, I hope I've pronounced that right. He's an absolute game breaker as well. I think he was on the All Blacks 15 tour last year. The second try that ended up being scored by Angus Ta'avale, the play off the line-out was awesome. And it was I think it was the hooker, whose name escapes me, who the cutout pass, an Aaron Smith-esque cutout pass that took out like the first 2 receivers. So they have players who can make a difference, and I think that is, and they're guys who've sort of not really come from nowhere, but they're, Tangato's a bit of a journeyman, and all of a sudden now he's probably one of the best wingers in New Zealand, at least on form. It's a team that seems to really excel, and I think that is a result of really great coaching, because you've got a coaching group who seem to get quite a lot out of players who, if you were to compare the roster to the Crusaders or the Chiefs, probably not as good. Whereas you look at how the All Blacks played last year, and I think the Crusaders, to an extent, well, probably over the last sort of 10, 15 years, apart from the Scott Robertson era, this was the case with Todd Blackadder, and I feel like it's sort of the case last year and this year, even though they won it last year, they don't sort of seem to hit their absolute potential in the height of it. Like the Crusaders, eras last year, my issue with them was, apart from the final, they didn't seem like an 80-minute team or close to it. I'm still not totally convinced by them. And I think if the Chiefs don't lose to the Blues in the finals last year, the Chiefs probably won the whole thing. It was just the fact they ended up hosting, the Crusaders managed to host the Chiefs in the final, that they won it. But I'm still not really that convinced at all by the Crusaders.
You see the look on Rob Penny's face? And priceless. It was absolutely priceless. It looks as though he'd seen a ghost at the end. And, again, it's the opening match. I think the result was what excites everyone is that, you want an upset. You want, something that you're not expecting to happen, because that's the great thing about sport. You turn the game on, you always think, I know what's going to happen here. But it's like Scotland, England today. It was brilliant. Just a great way to kick the competition off. Even though, as I said, look, the skill level and all of that, that'll get better, all of that. And a pretty good crowd at Forsyth Bar, as opposed to the following game, which I did watch as well, New South Wales belting Queensland, getting away on them in the last 20 minutes. Not a great crowd, but these are the notes I made. Max Jorgensen's footwork, speed, and just superb wing play. This is a guy who, I hadn't really taken much notice of him, Lachlan, until last year against the Box at Ellis Park. And, when he's standing up defenders. But he has an ability that very few wingers in the competition or in World Rugby do, which is just that old-fashioned, beautiful swerve off both feet, the stop and start. It's all in the eyes and the footwork, isn't it? He's not the biggest bloke. He's not going to run over the top of you, but he's beating you with guile and pace. And I just think nous and sheer skill. It's glorious to watch. That's as good as rugby gets, watching a guy like that play. I love it.
Yeah, and there's a lot. And the great thing about rugby in this part of the world is you get a lot of these wingers who play like that, and who tend to play fullback as well, who can break a game open. But there's just so many of them, and every year there's 2 or 3. Which is why the All Blacks, their wing duo at a World Cup is never really the starting wingers the previous year or 2 years prior. By the way, with Caleb Tangita, I called him a journeyman. I got his resume mixed up with Nani Punivai, who's played for a number of teams.
No, I think Tangita is one of those guys like Jimmy the Difference was last year. They just write his name down and just keep it there.
Yeah, because he was at the Blues for a couple of years and could never really crack the starting side on a consistent basis. But he had a great year at the Highlanders. And this is the thing. This is the beauty of, I think, this is where it would be really nice to have maybe MP a bit more integrated in New Zealand rugby, as these guys get these chances, and you think about sort of the talent out wide that we produce, and you think of, a lot of them probably won't get a crack at the All Blacks and they end up going overseas, which is a bit of a shame. But you get teams like the Highlanders or Manua Pasifika who don't have, on paper, the best players out wide or playing at fullback, and you get these chances because we've got so much of that talent that we get to see them play.
Bryle's first try for Queensland, there was just bing bong la la, just nutso rugby. Loose passes, forwards kicking the ball, possession changing hands 3 to 4 times in 3 to 4 phases. This is what I wrote down. It looks really messy. It looks looks untidy. Number 6, I think, for Queensland ended up putting in a 40-metre kick at It's what the Northern Hemisphere like to sneer at. They call it ping pong rugby or basketball rugby or whatever. It ended up with New South Wales on their try line trying to run it out and get into halfway, and then Queensland ended up going down the other end and scoring. And straight away, Mark Keohane, a South African correspondent who we know on Twitter, not a dominant tackle in sight. Okay, sure.
Well, it's just a different brand of rugby.
Look, it was wacko, it was helter-skelter. Having said that, 15 tackles missed after 28 minutes of the Scotland-England game. That happens, I'm not criticising Mark, I'm just saying this happens in rugby sometimes where you have passages of play where it is really messy and really untidy. And I mean, if you're looking at Super Rugby, that's not an advertisement for the sport. It was just the players, like none of them looked to me like they really knew what to do, and you were hoping somebody would take control and just drive it up for a while. But if you want to criticise it and switch the channel to something else. It's just whatever, mate. I just don't get this, your competition's better than ours or ours is better than yours. Who cares, mate?
Yeah, but it's a bit like how
just don't watch it.
You watch 2, 3, 4 different brands. Like football in Italy is totally different to how it's played in England,
and in South America. The way the Argentinians play international football is completely different the way that in France play it.
Yeah,
the Premier League's completely different from the way that they play in Germany. Who cares? It's just a game. Anyway, let's go down from that. Score was 17-12 after 56 minutes, and the Tars put on 19 in the last 23 minutes. So they really ran them off their feet. And I think Queensland were down 11 players or something like that. So that's why didn't Swa'ali'i get carded for the high knee carry? Like, he's running, and who used to do that for the Warriors?
What, Conrad Hurrell?
Yes, he did a Conrad Hurrell. Like, he ran into the guy, lifted his knee, hit him right here. And that to me is a yellow card offence. It has to be, isn't it?
What does the rule book say about this? It'd be quite murky. Because
whatever the rule book says, that's dangerous as hell as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You can't run with your knee up like that. You can't run into a tackle raising your knee.
I guess if you're leaping off the ground.
No, he's just running.
So I don't know. It's quite a murky area because I remember there was an NRL player who did it. I think it was a Melbourne Storm player many years ago who essentially leaps into a tackle and raises his knees and ends up clocking a couple of defenders in the head, and I think that was a penalty, but it's not something you see much of. So maybe the referees don't really have a.
I would look at that again because I think that's something that they need to look at. I don't know what the rule is, but I just say you can't have it in the game. It's just way too dangerous. It's a knee to the head is what's waiting to happen there, and if you did, you'd be red carded.
Yeah, you would.
So I don't know whether it's a rush of blood or whatever. Let's go to the Drua MP because I watched that game yesterday. I was watching a little bit of the Warriors in the afternoon.
Who picked that?
Well, nobody picked it.
No.
40-26. Great crowd and everyone under the umbrellas. It looked so goddamn hot there. Awesome start by MP. They were 2 tries in the first 10 minutes. They were 3 in the first 17 minutes, all converted. And Lachlan, the way that they played, this was just hard out, get territory, smash it up the middle, pick and goes, win the ruck. Miracle Fa'alangi, just awesome near the try line. That guy's just a huge man who body position
Hawke's
brilliant.
Well.
Look, it was just, to be fair, the Drua were awful. And I really like Glenn Jackson. Glenn's been on the program a couple of times, but oh man, he's got no hair left. He's torn it out, all out already. But to coach that team and to prepare, like he said, and they prepared so well, they just didn't come to play the Drua. They just didn't tackle. They just weren't committed to it. And they just got beaten up the middle.
Yeah, it took them about an hour to get into the game, and that was sort of how. If you're in that situation where you're playing a team who have an absolute fortress in Lautoka like the Drua do, if they're off their game, you just got to get ahead early because there is a point they're going to get back into the contest. And they did the Enduro, and I think
they came within 7 with 17
26.
minutes to go.
And when that happened, I thought, Mine have lost this.
I thought they were at least going to draw the game at that stage.
Patrick Pellegrini missed a penalty at the end that would have made it a 10-point game. Obviously, they ended up getting that try that won it by 14. But when that happened, I just thought, oh gosh, the Enduro are going to steal this.
Yeah, I just thought that, maybe the kind of heat and fatigue factor might get them at the end. And did they have a big enough lead? The draw always going to come back in the second half. And I wrote this down at halftime. Chris Gibbs, their forwards coach, says, we just simply got to start the season again. That's what he said. He said, we haven't turned up yet. We haven't started yet. So he said the second half is going to tell us what we're made of. They were down 28-12. They regrouped at 33-26. And then they were pressing, but again, just ill discipline, got on the wrong side of the ruck and so forth. That's the first win in Lautoka for MP. They won in Christchurch last year.
Yep.
So they are ticking off. Now you go to the Force and win, because they didn't win that game last year.
Round one.
And round one, that was just they lost in the 85th minute or something. But you're starting to tick off. They've beaten the Blues here in North Harbour, North Harbour, and if they win at Eden Park's the next one, they're ticking off the biggest grounds, the hardest grounds to win at. Any team in the last 2 seasons that's won both in Christchurch and Fiji, they're big ticks, mate.
Oh, yeah, and you think back to when the Blues were so ordinary for about 10 years, that they would still get wins over Australian or South African sides. They might even go to South Africa and beat someone like the Stormers or the Bulls, but they couldn't beat any Kiwi team, and I don't think they beat a New Zealand team for like 4 or 5 straight years or something. It's stupid. Yeah. Whereas Moana, there were games last year that they could have won, and if they had, it would have gotten them into the finals. But the teams they're beating, as you say, the Crusaders, they beat the Blues, they beat the Canes last year, getting a win in Fiji, a place that no one wins at. They are big ticks. Whereas you look at the Enduro, think back to 2023, there was that weekend where they beat the Crusaders on a Saturday afternoon, and it was the most shocking result because they'd not done anything to that point in the Enduro, and the Crusaders obviously were 5-6 time defending champions or something stupid, and it felt like that was a marker, and they sort of have slowly, gotten better. And then last year it felt like they should have probably been in the fight for the finals, especially if Moana are.
Agree.
And yet now Moana seem to really be making strides forward, but the Enduro aren't. And yet if you'd picked it when these two teams were established, you would have thought that the Enduro, based on the player pool they've got,
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think that's really, it's not just disappointing for them, it's quite dispiriting, that result, because I as you say, I don't know anyone in any of the tipping competition. I mean, if you did tip MP, I got 4 out of 5. I got that one wrong. If you did tip that one, congratulations to you. It was a hell of a performance. It can't take anything away from them. They just played really well. They just went to play and they played well. How's this for an incredible stat? At 73 minutes, Scrums won. Drua, 3 out of 3, 100%. MP, 6 out of 6, 100%.
Wow.
When, if ever. You got nine scrums, they've all been won. Like, no disruptions, no nothing.
Oh, to be fair, you don't really, it's quite rare to lose it against. So, like, if you've got your own scrum, it's quite rare to lose it, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I think it's quite
I don't know. Train spotters?
I'm really...
Get to us. Let us know.
I'm really pleased for Moana. I really am, because everyone just wrote them off straight away because Artie left. And I think Nandela Mapi's a really good addition. Obviously, Miracle Whailangi's just an absolute beast of a man.
Can he play for us?
Well, you're doing the Sir Michael Jones? So Frank Bunce, the similar thing happened to him?
Just, I don't know.
He plays for Samoa. But also...
Miracle, but just, I don't want to... I'm just saying that, don't be hasty in any of these decisions. That's all. Sorry, mate, I'm selfish. I'm just totally selfish. If you can play like that, put a black jersey on.
But do you like the fact that Moana can produce his players and give them to the island?
Yes, absolutely. Look, the whole point of it is that, that they retain these players as well, as opposed to losing them the next season. Because if he keeps playing like that, he won't be playing for them next season. Well, or he'll be overseas, or some other team will pick him up.
Well, so we've had 2. Not really. Artie doesn't really quite count, but you've had 3 standout players from Moana pretty much leave after one really good year. Yeah. Levi Almore went to the Crusaders and then pretty much just done nothing for the Crusaders. You had is it Karen Tomafalau, who's now at the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Artie's now gone. Someone like Miracle, he can't leave. He can't leave.
Final game, didn't watch it, but picked the Brumbies to win 80 points, point a minute. So I'll watch the highlights of that. I'm sorry, I can't lie to you. I'm not going to pretend that I've watched every game. I've watched 4 live games of rugby this weekend and tried to fit in everything else that you meant to do on the weekend as well. So, that's a fair bit. Tony will join us tomorrow, Locke, and he'll give us expert analysis. Also on the program this week, Sean Fitzpatrick in the studio on Tuesday, which is just going to be awesome. And so if there's anything that you want to ask Fitzy, He's flying back to England, I think, this week, so he's only here for a couple of days. Obviously, we're going to talk to him about Super Rugby. We're going to talk to him about the South African tour, all of that kind of stuff. But dspn@rover.nz. Send us an email. Let us know. Happy to ask him anything that you want to ask him. It's a real treat to have him in the studio. Okay. He's one of our legendary All Black captains, and especially in a year like this. And also, obviously, we're going to ask him about the All Blacks coaching situation. Now, I've put it out there publicly that I had a little bit of a whisper that it was going to happen this week. Sometimes with your intel it works like it did with Fabian Holland. And look, the whole thing about it is there's no such thing as scoops these days and news. As soon as it's out there, everyone's got it. Yeah. That's just rubbish. I don't care about that stuff. But somebody had given us a little whisper that it might happen this week. And I think that probably makes sense in the next couple of weeks. If it doesn't happen this week, I expect it really soon, because with Jamie Joseph now having coached the Highlanders to beat the Crusaders, it's just ramping now, isn't it? It's just either name him or leave him.
Is there an ideal time to do it?
No, not last week to take the shine away from the first round of Super Rugby. So it's going to happen in between rounds of Super Rugby at some stage. Well, it has to, doesn't it? They're not going to wait to the end of Super Rugby. Good God, surely not.
Could they announce it, at Super Round? I mean, that's still... No, that's still 2 months away.
Then it's starting to be so contrived. Look, this is a really important decision. Obviously, it's the biggest decision probably in New Zealand sport this year. Once the coach is in place,
biggest decision in New Zealand. I don't care if there's a general election coming up.
You're right.
This is more important.
Actually, you're right.
To be honest,
actually, you're right.
Way more important.
Way more important.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, really, what is more important to you? Getting a good All Black coach in place and the All Blacks winning, or whoever wins the election. It doesn't matter who wins the election. I mean, they're going to do what they want anyway, aren't
Nothing
they?
really changes. Rates go up. Bills go up.
A whole lot of stuff gets promised, doesn't actually happen. Bitch and yell at each other in the house and moan about everything the opposition do, even though you'd probably do it if you weren't the opposition. All of that bollocks.
People talk about that. Oh, we're in it for the people. We're in it for you.
Yeah, that's right. They're in it for the people. That's right. Yeah.
Improves. With the Force Brumbies game, do you think it was smart from Super Rugby to make that the last game? Because I would imagine the TV numbers just plummeted.
Well, but look at the time zones. When else were they going to play? Unless they're going to play it in the afternoon.
Maybe have the Brumbies host it.
Great opening first round. Loved it. Awesome results in the Six Nations today. If you're obviously not if you're English, but for all of us neutrals, that's what you want. As far as the bookies went, and we did this on Friday, that's just to close out people. We did this Thursday with Jamie Wall. All of the games, Ireland massive odds to beat Italy. England were big odds to beat Scotland, and France, you can't get any odds on them to beat Wales. And then the Jocks do it again, 6th time in the last 7 years. This is a team that has never beaten the All Blacks. And the Poms gave us one last year, and then this England team absolutely got turned over by the Scots this morning.
Well, it's nice.
Put all that together and figure it out.
Well, it's good because as England rugby tends to do, they just get a little bit carried away with themselves.
Here we go. See, here we go.
No,
here we go.
You
don't like Henry Pollock. You don't weigh there. They don't like the thing. You're always anti-England.
No, I like Henry Pollock. I like a bit of a maverick. I didn't like what he did during the haka where he's licking his lips.
Oh no, that's just
it was a bit weird. It's like, well, if you end up losing, you look like an idiot.
Well, yeah, they didn't, did they? But they lost this morning.
You can do that post-match. Yeah, they lost this morning, which is good. World Rugby is actually in a really good spot right now. I know we like to moan about Super Rugby, and then you can laugh at the fact that the Blues Guard of Honour was at the wrong side of the stadium, but World Rugby, globally is in a spectacular spot.
Because the matches and the contests are what we're actually into, and that was compelling today. If you got up and you watched that game at Murrayfield, it was compelling sport.
Yeah, and if a couple of bounces of the ball go Italy's way, they could be 2-0.
There you go. Thank you so much for watching this live broadcast across Facebook and across the DSPN YouTube channel. Thank you so much to these guys, Novus Glass. Again, I'll always say, if you support us, please support those who sponsor us as well and keep us going. Thank you so much for tuning in. DSPN will be producing programs right across the week. Click that subscribe button for us. And if you want to really help us out, well, we have a Changing Sheds episode every Friday. And what that is a pay-per-view model, a couple of bucks a week. And we put a whole lot of extra content together for you. Again, we appreciate the comments, the thoughts, and the fact you've clicked on to watch. Valentine's Day was yesterday. Go and do something about it. It's never too late. It's not too late. Oh, and just pretend like you didn't forget, but you always had this planned. Lie like a guy.